So we had you on before, like a long time ago. What was she, episode
Almost
9 or something?
Episode 13, I think.
13. You think? That sounded like you knew.
What episode are we at now?
Dude, are you 70 something?
I think she's going to be 72.
Yeah. And we haven't had many episodes without people, so we're starting to repeat a little bit. We were kind of picky. We didn't want to repeat too quick, but if it was topical, we wanted to. But for the people who don't know you, like, what's a quick summary of what you do, who you are, what makes you interesting?
What makes me interesting? That's a big question. Well, I don't know. I don't know where to start.
You're a badass trail runner.
You're okay
OCR.
runner.
I'm just gonna talk about what I like.
Yeah, there you go.
I started running a couple years ago and got like very invested very quickly. I got into it like from OCR. From OCR, I quickly got into the ultras, and I'm only 25, so I'm kind of on the younger side to be doing ultras, but I've now done like 9 100 milers. I think just one 100K, couple 50 milers, couple 50Ks. And then on the OCR side of things, I started out doing pretty well in those, and I've out becoming more of a runner and like learning the whole athlete side of things. I've kept climbing up in that. So I'm now like, I'm definitely not like at the top of the sport yet, but that's the goal. And so this year I'm like competing in like the national series and stuff, which in that world is a bigger deal than most people would know, but that's kind of what I do. I like to run and race.
And you're very good at both, but OCR, you're like winning a lot. And for people who don't know, OCR is obstacle course racing.
Yeah.
So
obstacle course racing, Spartan is like the most common brand. But a lot of people, like, I think it caters more to like the everyday, like, hey, this is a fun challenge, like do this for fun. And most people don't know about kind of the top end of it. At the top end, you can actually, in trail running, there's not really a lot of cash prizes for winning. The top trail runners are making money off of sponsors. Like they have sponsors that are sending them to these races and stuff. In OCR, there's not a lot of sponsors, but what sets it apart is there are cash prizes for, obviously not, I mean, it's for a smaller sport, it's on the larger side, but.
Where does DECA fall into that? Because is that kind of the same thing?
DECA is like a spinoff of Spartan, so it's functional. It's a Spartan brand, so it's just kind of a spinoff of them. Kind of like most Spartans are the trail, the obstacles, and that can be really intimidating for a lot of regular people. But like DECA makes it more, I guess, like approachable. More, anybody can run circles or walk circles and like complete these basic movements. So that's their biggest thing, is like 100% success rate. Everybody can physically do it. And that's, Spartan race, like anybody can go out on a trail and attempt the obstacles, but there's a lot of things that an average person just off the couch could not do. So it's just kind of, it's within the Spartan brand, but just kind of making it more.
And you kill those too. You kill the DECAs, you kill the OCRs, and you're starting, I think, I don't know, I won't say anything about that, but like these these ultra runs, you're starting to place in them too, which is really good.
Yeah.
Like what places have you gotten in these races, and how long were they? I
still wouldn't say I'm super competitive in ultra running. Most of the ultras that I'd say a lot of people that get into ultra running come into it from the marathon or the half marathon or Ironman, like some kind of fitness background. And so there is a pretty, like, not specific, but a pretty, there is a specific like training plan you can follow to transition from competitive marathoning or Ironman to these ultras. And so I don't come from that world. I come from I didn't come from being competitive in a sport and then, let's bump it to these ultras now, which are kind of on another level, a different level of competition. I thought 100 miler sounded crazy but doable, and I decided to do it. And so from there, like, I kind of jumped into it. And a lot of people that are competitive at marathoning, they're competitive at it. They're running fast. They're, doing very well in a sport. So when they imagine like 100 miles, that's 4 times a marathon, and a marathon takes a lot out of you. So I feel like it's kind of like me, like I can complete a 100 miler. But 4 times that, like, no, I'd have to like train for a long time. So I feel like most people come into it as this is a big deal. I need to train for it and do it well. I came into it as like, this sounds crazy, but it's possible and I'm going to do it. And now that I've done some of them, I know I can always complete it. And I would like to get more competitive, but I haven't really built up the background to be competitive in them yet. And I live in South Texas and choose to go run them in the mountains, and that's just not going to go well. I'm getting better. Some of I think the smaller races I definitely finished in top 10, which is good for me. I think.
What's smaller though? So
smaller, I mean, like up to like 300 to 400 people.
Oh, smaller in people, not mileage.
Yeah, no, smaller races, but like big races, like your, famous competitive,
like Colorado and stuff, huh?
Yeah, those ones I'm not placing in. I did Wasatch 100, which is a pretty big one in Salt Lake City. It kind of like starts on the north. Well, you basically run across the Wasatch mountain range, and I was 9th or 10th female, maybe it was 11th. Somewhere within the top 15. I don't know if it was quite top 10. And like 50th overall, which again is not super competitive, but that's some level of like out of, I think 250 finishers, I was in kind of that top quarter.
Oh, wow.
So I'm happy with that for now. I would like to get to the point where I go into OCRs thinking I'm planning to podium, or at least, I know I'm competitive in that sport, and I'm definitely not there in hundreds, but that's the goal. You're
still really young too. Like I'll always hear ultra running marathon people talking about the older people win. A lot of them. Do you see that?
Oh yeah, for sure. They say like your speed, what do you call it? Your peak for speed sports is like earlier 20s, 30s, and then your peak for endurance sports is more like 30s, 40s. The most recent ultra I did a ultra weekend in Arkansas, where it was like a stage. It was 50K one day, 50 miles one day, 20K the next day. Jeez. And you can either win, like they have placements for each race. Or I guess they have winners for each race and then placement overall for the whole. It was like 95 miles total. I was the youngest winner, female winner. Maybe winner ever, definitely the youngest female winner that they've ever had. But the winner on the guys' side was, I think, 50 something.
Gosh.
Yeah. So, and there was a young guy probably in his mid 30s that was pretty competitive the first day and the second day. Like that's who he was kind of competing against, with this guy in his early to mid 30s. I was running really fast, but the guy that won it was on the older side. Like I was like, it's pretty cool. Pretty that's impressive.
Awesome. We talk about prime ages. I think a misconception is like 20s. Aside from you, but 30s is normally like, especially for men, it's like they're killing it. But 50 or like the 50 range too, like
yeah,
they're beating some of the 30-year-olds.
Well, I think you hear so much like people are like, oh, well, you're young, and there's absolutely a lot of advantages to being young. I recover well, my body's not all torn up, like all that. But I think a lot of people underestimate the experience, the conditioning, the value that has. So I have a lot of people, I'm on the younger side. And so some people are like, oh, I'm competing against somebody that's my kid's age or whatever. Yeah. My thing is, one, like I'm choosing to make these decisions. You made your decisions in your 20s. Like, that's not my fault that you weren't doing this in your 20s, whatever. Like a lot of people live it up in their 20s, and I'm not really doing that. Like I'm doing stuff that most people think kind of sucks. So there's that. And then the other thing too is like, I don't have years and years of building up muscles. Also not, injuries and stuff, but I think a lot of times you grow through injuries as well. So there's kind of like that two sides, like, yes, there's advantages, but there's also a lot of advantages to experience and time in the sport. So
yeah, there's a lot of mental, and mental takes time to develop.
Well, they say that's the biggest reason people like under 20 don't run ultras and don't run 100 milers. Like they're physically able to. I mean, people in their 60s are physically able to, but most teenagers, kids, like mentally either aren't there or don't choose to be there, so that's definitely a factor.
Yeah. Are you worried about the damage that you're putting on your body? Like, as you age?
I'm more worried I'll get mentally tired of it.
Really?
Yeah. When I run these ultras, I ran with this guy that was 55, 56 for quite a bit, most of the days. I think he ended up beating me 2 of the days, and I maybe beat him 1. So he's like definitely all there. But I told him, I was like, when you're running these ultras, I always strike up conversations and kind of, so I asked him like, how long you've been running these? He said he's been running, I think he ran all the way through high school, through college. And I told him, I was like, I think it's really neat that you're still running and still very competitive and like crushing it. And I told him that's something I always worry about is like, I feel like I'm going to get so like burnt out by the time I'm 60, I'm just going to want to sit on the couch and relax. But he had said like, he didn't run competitively in college, I think, but he said he ran through it, like ran through college into, the rest of his life. And I think he's a high school coach now, track coach, something. And he said he enjoys that because it's kept him sharp. He said up until a few years ago, he was pacing their like district lead, like their top people. He was still pacing for them. So damn. I was like, that's pretty cool. Like if it's something you love, if it's something you like do just because you like it, like there is no, you just mentally just get stronger and like enjoy it more. You learn stuff, you work through stuff, and it's pretty neat.
Yeah, you're on the track to do that too. I mean, you're already there, but it's like, I don't see you slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah.
So,
but I kind of worry about that. I'm like, there's not enough time each year to do everything I want to do. So a lot of years I'm kind of like, okay, this is going to be a good year and I'll feel like accomplished after this. And then throughout the year, I hear about all kinds of stuff and I'm like, okay, this year's going great, but like this next year, these are all my plans for next year. And I keep on adding more big plans each year. So we'll see.
It's exciting.
So you tear up OCR and you're doing this, you're doing trail running, long distance running. I heard you have some haters.
I'm going to need you to expound on that more. Which ones?
Mike hates you.
I hate you. Get out of my OCR. For you being young and good, you've been getting hate only on that, right?
Really not a lot of haters. I've come across one person that has made it very clear that they're not a big fan. And I always find that kind of interesting. Like, I guess I took it really hard initially. I only started running when I found out about this stuff when I was about 20, so like 5 years ago. I had kind of tried to make it in horses. I worked with horses, worked with different trainers. I moved out east to like train and show and work for like the people at the top of the sport, and realized pretty quickly there, like you can't make it unless you have a lot of money. You have a lot of like background, a lot of backing. And everybody that's been doing this has been doing it their entire lives. So like there was an opportunity, but I was like, you know what? I'm not this invested in it. So I kind of found OCR, started running them, wasn't bad at them, and was like, I can really get behind this. Like I really enjoy this. And I found, and there was some struggling when I was trying to pursue the horses. There was some struggle with people there of kind of the same thing, kind of being like, kind of off-put it, like, who do you think you are coming into this and thinking you can make it? And like, I didn't know much of what I was doing. And I was like, well, like, I want to learn, like, I'm decently good. Like, and there was a lot of kind of like pushback. So that was what helped me realize pretty quickly, like, this isn't for me. And so when I came to OCR, I was like, this is like, people are coming from all kinds of different things. Nobody started doing OCR when they were in middle school. Like nobody has been doing this through high school. Like this is a newer sport and everybody's coming to it from different things. So I was like, this is something, I mean, I liked soccer, I liked volleyball, but all those things, like people play it since they're in middle school and there's a certain kind of like grandfathering into it. So I was like, this is it. This is the thing. And I was like super excited about it. And there was a bit of controversy around my first win, my first ever Spartan win. I had probably like half mile up from the finish line. It was a really muddy course. I stepped in this mud and it just like sucked the shoe off of my foot. So I like grabbed my shoe. I had taken a step and my sock had come off. So I grabbed my shoe and my sock and I like ran up to the hill. There's this last series of like 3 or 4 obstacles. In Spartan, like if you can't complete an obstacle, you have to do 30 burpees. So there's you have to do them fast, but you have to do them well. And even though there was one other female in front of me, there's always a chance like they can mess up at the end and I can, make time. Anyway, so I ran up. The first obstacle was this rope climb. And the volunteer there told me like, hey, give me your shoe, do the rope climb. So I gave him the shoe. They handed it to my friends that were watching. thought nothing of it. Did the rope climb. The next obstacle is like a hanging obstacle with like, it's kind of a twist on monkey bars. And the girl that was in front of me had fallen off of it and was over there doing her 30 burpee penalty. So I made it through the twister, made it over the last obstacle. I finished. I was like, I won. This is so cool. About a week later, somebody like told me there was this controversy. Somebody made a post on social media about why they don't like the brand of Spartan because they encourage or they allow their top athletes to cheat. And there was a picture of me jumping over this fire with one shoe on. And I was like, whoa, what happened here? So there is a rule in the rule book that whatever you start the race with, you have to finish it with. So this person decided to pick bones with Spartan using my picture with my Instagram username in that picture to say they don't like Spartan. Well, I made the mistake like reading all these comments, and there were a lot of comments not about Spartan, about me as an athlete and how what an idiot I was and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, none of these people know nothing. Nobody was there. This girl that posted about it wasn't there. The girl that actually was there commented and said that her and her husband had like tried to fight it there at the race. And the race director had said, no, this stands, we're good to go. So she had, like the girl that actually stood to lose from my cheating had reconciled herself to it more or less, Anyways, all these opinions. And I was just kind of like, this is insane. Like nothing about this was an advantage. For them to have that rule is kind of dumb. Like I can see like if you start with like a hydration vest and then lose it, or if you like trash, but what about all the trash that all of them throw on the side of the trail all the time? Like, so it's like kind of a dumb rule for them to have. And then to say they're not like, I don't know, it was just a really dumb thing to pick a controversy over. And I was unintentionally like right in the middle of it. Anyway, so that was kind of like my introduction, and I had some serious thoughts about like, you know what? Forget it. Like, if this is really what they're going to pick bones about, like, this is ridiculous. I'm over it.
Kind of.
I was done.
How is that? But real quick, how is that cheating? That almost seems harder.
That
almost seems harder.
Picking apart the rules.
Just picking apart. And people get onto Spartan for their rules all the time. And Spartan is like, there's this kind of this debate, like, are they encouraging the elite side of the sport, or are they just a business trying to make money off of people that want to do these fun runs? So there's kind of a balance. Like, okay, I think it's neat that they encourage the top end of the sport some. There's cash payouts, and there's talk about, I don't know really with Spartan, but there's kind of like, oh, we want this in the Olympics, because it really is like obstacle course racing, I think, is an impressive sport. But when you look at Spartan, like they're really making their money off of the hundreds of people that roll off the couch and say, this is crazy, let's do this. And they're out there running in their road shoes and like, just having a blast. So to like pick Spartan apart for, not meeting everybody's expectations, I think they need to be called out if they're going to be like promoting the top end of the sport, like, either do it or don't. But like, you also got to kind of, just take it or leave it. Like, so there's a lot of that goes on, and I just happen to be caught in the middle of that. And so
that's I think anybody that listens to that knows it's dumb. And especially it puts you at anything a disadvantage, because you don't have the grip on the rope, because you use your feet a lot on a rope. I don't know how I know that. But monkey bars, I mean, what are you going to use with your shoe?
You have to land without your shoe. And there's a fire jump at the end. Like, not that anybody's getting burned, but like, it's not an advantage at all.
Not at all.
Am I following the rules? Apparently, all the old people, the people that have been running it for a long time were like, oh, we used to, finish with our shirts in our bras, and if our shoes broke, we'd stick them in our shorts. And all of a sudden I'm like, y'all are just extreme. Like, if this is actually a sport, like, I found it really funny. I did a half Ironman at the end of last year, and it is entirely expected to bike through on the bike. You bike through those aid stations. They'll hand you water bottles. They'll hand you whatever. And people drink it. And about, a couple hundred meters past the aid station, the whole side of the road is covered in water bottles, even like plastic, like not just like store-bought water bottles, but like little like squeezed bike bottles. People just toss it all on the side of the road, and that's expected. Like, so it's so weird to me where now trail running is different. Like trail running is real big on like maintaining trails and taking care of it, all that. So, and that's kind of where Spartan comes from. But it was kind of the thing of like it's normal to just like throw stuff off and go. Like it's a competitive sport. But,
I think no matter what you do, even if you win fairly or not, or you're always going to have a hater or two. Especially you, because you got blonde hair, you're tall, you're pretty. I know.
Shaves their head.
That's what's doing it. I think, and then that kind of showed me a lot of true colors of some people that like I kind of knew or knew friends of friends and kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is the stuff they're saying. And then it, unfortunately, I'm not really, because that big post, it's kind of stuck around. And me progressing so quickly, I guess, kind of got under some people's skin. Me trying to progress bothers some people. And I think I know because I've seen other comments referring to me losing that shoe on posts, like months later. And I'm like, I see these comments, I'm like, why is this even like, people call me names using the shoe, and I'm like, that's insane.
That's the shoe girl.
So I know. That's what I'm going to comment.
Or less nice words. That shoe, something else.
Oh, really?
Like, shoe bitch, huh?
Yes.
Shoe bitch. Like, I would represent that shit. I put on your jersey, fucking shoe bitch. That'd be fucking funny.
It was
your new
insane
handle.
to me that's what they were referring to me as, and I'm just like, to me, I was like, what the like. I just did a lot of blocking. Like, don't need that. Don't need that. So
let it happen though, because like, fuck it. Like I like negative comments. I've been called weird shit on our comments sometimes, and I'm like, fuck yeah, I like it now. But that's part of what we're talking about, like with being older too. Yeah. That mental side is like being able to deal with that dumb shit too. Yeah. Because a lot of the people on top, they don't have many friends.
Yeah.
If you can be nice, but they just disregard those people that are. Because they're jealous, right?
Yeah. I care a whole lot less now. I mean, even at that time, I knew like these people don't know me. These people don't know anything, but it still kind of gets to you. And now I'm like, you know what? They can say whatever they want. Like, it doesn't bother me. So.
Have you goofed up on any of the obstacles? Like, I imagine when I've seen you roll down that net part, like the net pyramid, and I just think a leg would get caught in one of those holes, and you just like
it hasn't happened yet. When I first, so a lot of people will like flip over the top of the nets. And when I first was learning how to do that, I would let go with my hands, like as I flipped. And so it'd just be like this flip over, but then like full commit, I'm like on the ground. But I like figured that one out pretty quickly. Like you got to hold on until you're all the way flipped over. There was actually just this past Saturday, I had kind of a bad race on Saturday where I was just like clumsy and slipping over a bunch of stuff. But there's a lot of times where you'll like run up like a slip wall and then you climb over the top, and it'll normally be like a wooden ladder on the backside where you kind of climb down the framing of the obstacle. And I was climbing down that, and my foot slipped, and my foot and arm like slid onto the backside of this little wooden. Yeah. As I was swimming down, I was like, I am like stuck in the backside of this obstacle. What is happening?
I like how you get up the one with a rope. You like pull yourself up, and you like throw your leg over, and you like hook it with your heel. That's a good method. Not
everybody's that flexible.
No. I couldn't do that shit.
And every time I kind of think like, maybe I'm going to break myself. But like some people can muscle up it, and I'm just not that strong upper body. So I kind of like run up it as far as I can, pull up on the rope, and then I hook that foot, and I kind of like throw my entire foot and leg all the way up, and then that gets my hip up. And then from there, I'm able to like reach a hand and pull the rest of my body up.
That's a good technique, man.
I was looking at those pictures. I wouldn't know how to get up there. Don't you throw your leg? I mean, that's like how you get up there, right? Like, because it stops right here, and then that's the ledge.
Well, some people like pull up and grab.
Yeah, they get their hands up far enough to grab, or they're like throw their upper body kind of over the top. I can't do that. Yeah. A lot of people do the like foot hook kind of thing, but I feel like a lot of people kind of like hook and then grab with their hands. But every time I do it, I have to like get my leg all the way up over the top, and then I kind of pull the rest of the stuff up. It's just kind of those things you kind of figure out after doing them a couple times.
What are the dirty games? Like, I'm sure people know how to take like shortcuts. Do people get competitive where like they're pushing each other? Like, have you seen any of that stuff in OCR?
I don't do any of that, and I feel like OCR a lot, like you're kind of on your own a lot of the time. I haven't seen it. A lot of people get lost, which I don't think that's really like a trick or a tactic. I don't really understand how, but a lot of people end up getting lost. Like they're moderately well marked. Like there's normally some kind of arrows or flagging, but people get lost. almost every time where they'll go like way off course. Sometimes, I mean, this past Saturday, some of the tape, like their flagging tape, had like broken and blown across the course. So where it was like, if you kind of like looked around, you could tell like, oh, the course is supposed to go straight, but there was a tape like right across the course. Like, I guess the only thing I've seen on like obstacles is they have these like rolling mud or mud pits, and a lot of people kind of skirt around those, which I don't think is really, I feel like that's just kind of smart racing. If it's within the tapes, do it. Yeah. There were these like ditches at the race in San Antonio on Sunday, and they're clearly like you're supposed to kind of go through them, but I was like, that's narrow enough. I just jumped them, and then I had the thought afterwards. I was like, were you supposed to go through them? Like, but like I stayed straight on the course. So, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is people will kind of slip or fall off an obstacle, and it's kind of hard to like to judge, to moderate, because you have so many people come through obstacles all at the same time. So I think there's definitely, not on the top end because people are watching, I think, a lot more, but kind of on the next couple levels, you'll see people like slip, fall, do something, and just kind of like keep going, where you're like, no, that was definitely like kind of failed that. You did not hit the bell, that kind of thing.
Are you seeing people juice or use performance-enhancing drugs yet?
I don't know. My cousin came and watched once, and he's like, all these people have to be on stuff. And like, I don't know. Again, like, I don't come from a sports athletic background, so I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how that works. There's definitely a couple people where I'm like, I think they're on something, but I don't know how any of that works. So.
Especially if there's prizes.
It'd probably be EPO, though. It wouldn't be like, is it EPO?
That's is supposed to be like clean sport. I think they've tested at a couple national championship races occasionally, but
I bet the bigger the sport gets, the more testing becomes a thing.
Possibly. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I have a hard time. Like, I can see like the advantage to that, but I think also like, I don't know. I kind of like struggle with that sometimes, because like, why wouldn't we want to see what humans are potentially capable of? Like, yeah. Even with a little assistance, but I find a lot of value in like, no, just, actually just humans, not drugs. So.
I'm on both sides too.
Yeah. I kind of see them both. Like, why don't we want to see like what these human like bodies can accomplish?
Well, maybe because the people coming up know that they have to take it to even compete. Yeah. And that's, I don't, there's long-term effects to take that too.
Like, there's so that's not actually my body. That's like my human body isn't capable of that. It's just the drugs. So it's kind of like this.
Yeah. But even with like, people always say, bodybuilders who are on steroids, they just that big because they have steroids, and they have to do the work. Like, the steroids aren't going to make them right. Just because you take something that improves your ability, right. Doesn't mean you're not doing work.
But then it also, to me, it like just takes away from what they're accomplishing, because they're not actually like, they're not just accomplishing that from hard work. Like, right. Absolute hard work is involved, but it's like, okay, if I just worked hard, I would never look like that ever, so.
That, yeah. And my biggest example of that is Lance Armstrong. Like,
yeah,
he won a lot of fucking races, and like the top 20 people were doing the same thing he was doing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's like, not everybody was doing it. Pretty much, there's people that weren't, and they were just really slow. I mean, just like, I think he's doing EPO, so like that blood transfusion stuff where you're putting more oxygen. I don't know what I'm talking about, so I'll quit on that part. But
doing something.
But I mean, he's talented still too, and to take like his whole reputation is terrible. And he's like donating his money to cancer, and it's like, they just totally canceled him. He might have been, was he the first canceled person?
No, I think like, was it the baseball player, Mark?
Oh, as far as like steroid type enhancers and stuff. I was talking about just cancel like the term that, he got, I don't know. He got pretty canceled.
It's been a lot, dude. Like, baseball players are always canceled. I forget the name of the baseball player, but.
Mark McGwire.
Yeah.
And Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds did it too, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody was doing it. Just spoke up about it.
You need to get on that.
Get on some steroids.
I know somebody.
That picture you posted the other day looked like you're on steroids.
Yeah. Who needs steroids?
I was like, who is this Photoshop girl?
Like, I made me go do biceps. I was like, son of a bitch.
We were taking pictures like there's one of my sponsors this year, Hyperware. And so we were like taking pictures of some of their products. And I was like wearing the tank top. And then Kenny was kind of doing like headshots as well. So he's like, all right, just, stand there. And then, I don't know if he told me to flex or just flexed. And then as soon as he took it, he's like, Kris, you kind of look strong. And I saw it and I was like,
kind of look strong. He's kind of impressed.
That's a lot from Kenny.
I know. Give you a compliment. I was
like, what happened?
What is Hyperware? Is it like lady clothing?
No, Hyperware is a like functional fitness. Their biggest things are their sandbags and their sandbag systems are super high quality, and they've I would say the best weight vests out there. Definitely the best like functional weight vests. I think they're working on a tactical one, so that's the one like it's kind of the tactical weight vest, and then there's like the functional ones. So they make a really good running weight vest where it's like sleek and fits well, feels good, it's comfortable, and they're definitely kind of like at the top of that brand. I haven't seen any that are made as well as theirs. They're literally, I mean, it's like it's a vest, and they have tiny little pockets, and you put little weight bars, like little bars of weight in each of those pockets. So weight is super easily distributed. You can like cinch it up on the side so it's really tight and fitted, so it's not bouncing around. So as far as like performance weight vests, they make the best ones out there.
What about the sandbags?
Their sandbags, so their sandbag system, well, so they make like these circular sandbags, and they actually initially designed the ones for Spartan, and then Spartan like stole their design and made a terrible knockoff version of it. Actually, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to like talk about it because that was kind of like funny. So, so their sandbags are like these circular sandbags, and they were initially used in Spartan races, and then now Spartan makes kind of like a knockoff version of them. But they have, so it's these circular sandbags that are, I mean, we use them a lot in functional fitness, but they're the quality, again, like they just make really high quality products. And then just the way they fill them, the way like they don't leak ever. And they also, which I'm not really in the workout equipment field, but this seemed really like breakthrough to me. They make sandbags with small like grains of metal. So they're more compact. It feels kind of the same as sand. It's slightly different, but it's more compact, but a heavier weight. So I have like this 100-pound sandbag that's filled with these grains of metal, like metal shot or something. And so it's like a grain, but the metal, of course, is heavier than sand. So it's about the size of I think like a 40-pound pancake filled with sand, or sandbag filled with sand, but it's 100 pounds. And it's just kind of,
you got a discount code? I want to get some of those now.
I actually do.
Kris Rugloski. It's cool because you were using the vest before that anyways. You were a vest person. I didn't really know about, I used ankle weights when I was younger, but I didn't know about the ankle weights are like,
I think those are
sloppy. They're sloppy. I would dunk with ankle weights on. I was like,
probably why you got bad knees.
After a while, I don't have bad knees.
I thought you said you did.
No. Come on, get off my knees. Not anymore. I'm getting them now. I'm getting some bad knees now.
So the weight vest, it just kind of helps with, I guess it's one of those like training farther than what you actually compete in. So
I love hearing you say, I'm not really into the workout like gear or whatever you just said, but you're very much into it.
Yeah, you work out every damn day.
I work out, but I wouldn't say like I'm a fitness gear expert or anything.
No, you know all about it.
Okay, well, maybe we're getting there.
Yeah, that's good. What about some good trail running stories? I know last time we got into the motions and like the awesome skyline that you were able to see, but what's some good trail stories?
Let me think of, I've done, I guess that would have been, it's probably Franklin's. I've done a couple since then. Let's see.
What was you ran in Colorado, right?
I have not done a 100-miler in Colorado yet. I'm doing one this year. I'm doing Leadville.
What was the one that, I only know it because Nick Bear ran it, but it was like the
Leadville?
That was Rocky Raccoon.
Yeah. How was that one?
That one was that was actually my 9th 100-miler. And not that you ever, like, each one is still always different, and it's always a whole different game. Like, and you never know what to expect. They always say, like, 100 miles is a long time. Anything can happen in that time. Like, you can have a pretty good idea. But that one was interesting because I've done some at, like, mountains elevation now. And this one was a very comparatively flat. It was flat. It was flat. It's on the north side of Houston. It was very cold, and it was looped, and I've kind of gotten away from looped races, and this is probably one of the last looped races I'll ever do. And loops are interesting because you kind of get familiar, like you know what to expect, but then you also get bored where you're like, I know what to expect. It was fun. It started sub 30 in the 20s or something. It warmed up during the day, and then it got cold. And of course, like, it's in February, so it's dark for 10, 12 hours. I really enjoyed most of it. I've gotten to a point, I used to always hit, 9 is a lot. So I guess I'll, when I first started, like, I would hit a really low point at nighttime where I was just like, this sucks. I've been running all day. I'm tired. I just hate my life kind of thing. And I would hit a really low point. And then when the sun would come up, I'm like, okay, let's go. We got this. And I don't hit that point anymore.
Really?
I guess that's where the kind of like the mental experience comes in. Like, I know it's not actually that bad. And especially if I can like keep those emotions in check, like it's not that bad. Like, so this was one where I found, I finished it earlier than I've ever finished 100 because it was at like 4 a.m, or maybe almost 5. It was almost 5, which normally I finish like at some point in the next day. This one was a sub 24. And it was that night, like knowing that, we got 20 miles left. We're in the last 20 miles, whatever. I kind of hit the point where I was like, I'm just tired. It's cold. Like it's getting harder and harder. I would stay warm, but I'd take off my gloves to eat or do anything. And then it'd take a while for my hands to warm up. And I kind of got to a point where I was like, this kind of sucks. But I literally had this thought of like, I knew I was like, that's my mental state, like dipping. Physically, I was feeling fine. Obviously like tired and everything sort of hurting, but I'm not actually physically falling apart. And the thing that kind of got me through that time was I kind of like took a step back and I was like, I'm choosing to like run through the woods at 2 a.m. and like, this is insane. But I smiled. I like made myself smile. I was like, this is fun. And then I kind of had the thought, I was like, me like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, like I would have loved this. Like, this is an adventure. And I did kind of like a little mindset shift. And that started like, obviously if you can like distract yourself from what's like, just kind of let your mind wander, it makes it a lot easier to just keep going. So I kind of like spent a little time like 10, 15 years ago, like, which was me as a child, even as an adult, like 10, 15 years changes a lot. And I kind of thought about like who I was back then, what I would think of myself now. And like, I guess kind of like making that younger self proud. And it was just kind of this neat moment because I like mentally knew, I was like, okay, wait, I can't go down this path of like, I'm tired, this sucks. So I was like, we got to switch things up. And that's what like did it for me this time, where I was like, if I were a kid running, like it was pretty trails. We're like going through the forest, and this part of it especially was neat. There were kind of, little ups and downs, like running around with my headlight. I was like, this would have been such a cool adventure. I'm like, it still is a cool adventure. Like, this is fun. I chose to do this, and like, this is cool that I can do this, that I am doing this. And yeah, that was one of the best races I've ever had, where like I finished well, I felt fine and all that. So
that's so cool. You're able to tap into that. That's what running does. Like running, especially long distances, you have these negotiations with yourself in your head, and you're always like, all right, I'll do that. I won't do that. I'll do this. I won't do that. But to do that, to remember having fun, like as a kid, because you lose that very quickly, especially when you become competitive. So you're competitive now. Yeah. So it takes away the fun a little bit. But I see you still having the magic in your eyes, like of a kid. Like, and I think
you have to keep that. Like, it's probably, it's easy for me to say because I'm still young and all this, and like, yes, but like, I have done a couple of these. Like, it's not just, like, it does get hard, and you can't lose that. Like, you have to, and that's what I've had to keep in OCR as well. Like, I love doing OCRs because, and a lot of times at the start line, I will tell myself like, this is so cool. I get to do this for fun. Like, that's what I'm thinking about before I go into a race. And like, I guess I never want to get to a point where I think like, this again, here I go. Any kind of like pressure, like to me, like that just takes out like this. Nobody expects anything. Nobody but me actually expects much. Like, it's not like in any situation, like it only really matters what I like prove to myself or tell myself before, during, after. So yeah, like I find it easier on the OCR because I'm like, this is fun. And if any point where I'm like, this sucks, I just like, oh, this is fun. Like, and it's shorter, it's easier. So I guess that was kind of the first time I've actually taken that to ultra. Where like, well, I can't say the first time, but that was the most recent one where I was like, this is it.
You're so emotionally and mentally mature. Like, you know what I mean?
I've not always been there, but I think running hundreds of miles maybe helps me get there, forces me to get there.
Yeah, like listening to other people talk, it sounds very similar. You got the same like inspirational, message, like you're able to tap in, like Mike said, in your brain. Not a lot of people, especially your age, can do that, because young people, they haven't lived life enough, and maybe you've done so many damn ultras that you've put years in your brain,
And I don't think a lot of people put themselves there. So like, I mean, it's taken me putting myself there 9 times to kind of get to the point of like be able to like consciously change that. Obviously too, like the people I'm around, like I see either people doing like, I can see people like doing negative things to their mindset. Like, so it's kind of cool to see the differences. Like they're like actually building themselves up, like actually growing mentally. And there's other people, you can tell by looking at them, by listening to them. I see it in the gym. I see both of those where you're like, you just saying or thinking that is dictating what is going to happen in your life now. And it's like, I don't know, it's been eye-opening to me to see like, I mean, we all know it. Everybody says it like it matters, but to actually be able to see it and then to like experience it, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think pain teaches you a lot too, because all kinds of pain, right? From losing a loved one or physical pain, if you're able to get through that and go through those mental agreements in your head, you learn so much. You have a lot of good influence around you too in the gym, like all your friends and stuff. They're very positive, and y'all kind of riding the same wave as far as fitness. So
I think it's it can be easy sometimes to like hear these things like this is cool, but I think I'm in a really neat position of being able to be those positive words in other people's lives too. So I can like, it's neat because, you sometimes get stuck in your own head and you don't realize the habits you're stuck in or the things you're telling yourself. But when you open yourself up and you're like with other people that are trying to succeed, trying to get better, or open to that idea, I think it really like opens things up where you're able to see, because that's, seeing other people either make those positive changes, mental changes, or seeing people on a negative train. It's like, oh, that's what that looks like. And so like, I've learned from that for sure. And sometimes those people are like hard to find. I think at Grit, like we have a really large group of people that are like in it, not just physically, but mentally as well. So it's pretty cool.
It's good to get away from those negative people too, because you don't realize how much they suck your soul. Like
just one person can do
it.
Yep.
I've gotten away from one before, and it's like, geez, it's like
a whole new world.
You're a whole other person almost. Like you're not even the same person when you're around people like that. But
it's like putting in your, people say like consuming content ruined your mind or whatever. It's like consuming bad food ruined your body.
Bad mental diet.
Yeah.
Or even the people you become most like the 5 people you're around. Like those influence you. Like
shit, I'm around Mike a lot.
Thinking about that too, like 5 people is not a lot of people. And most of us think like, 5 people, like you kind of consciously choose 5 people, but I think you kind of end up around 5 people too. And if you're not being like conscious and aware of that, you kind of fall in with people and, 5 people, and people can think of 5 people they admire and respect and like those are the people, but it's like, who are the people like, and I think being conscious of that, being aware of that, like 5 is not a lot of people. And I think that like you can't waste energy, waste time. Like 5 people, those are important 5 people. And you have to be like really aware of who those 5 people are. It's easy to just let people in and, influences and opinions and stuff. Like
it's tough too if there's somebody that you care about that is a shitty person or has a shitty mindset that you try to help. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Has that happened to you? I'm sure it has.
You know someone like right now.
But I think, just like identifying that, and I don't know, I've kind of found like space, like a little bit of space, and like understanding like, you know what? Some people are just where they're at right now, and yeah, I don't want to get like stuck up or not stuck, like wrapped up in that.
Yeah. So. Because everyone goes through, like, it could be just a shitty time in their life.
Yeah.
Family issues or whatever.
Or if it's long term, we've found out that they have to find their own way.
Yep.
Yeah.
You can't show them the way.
Yeah.
And
you pressuring them and trying to help can sometimes even like drive them further away. Like it.
Yeah, it's like helping someone with diet or something. It's never gonna work.
It's got to be their own thing.
Yeah, something significant needs to happen for them to change your mind.
Yeah. Is there ever a point where I'm sure there is, where you want to quit in these races? Like, I should just quit. Like, do you ever toss that in your head?
Not really. But I think that comes along with like the mentality. Like if I were to let myself mentally go there, I'd probably be quitting a lot.
You already tell yourself, I'm not going to go there.
Yeah. I don't know if I even tell myself, but I just like choose not to. Yeah. I've already decided that. So it doesn't even like come up.
Watching you run. So we did the Grid Ultra, Mike and I, we did the team relay. We're not as good as you, but watching you run the later legs of that race, when we were running in the middle of the night, I would get back and I'd tell Mike, I was like, fucking Kris is an animal. I don't know how she's doing this.
She's kind of a diva too, though.
Yeah, little diva. Much. But you're able, it looks like you're floating when you're running. I don't know how the hell you do it or what you do mentally.
That's bullshit.
What do you mean?
When I was running, she was just passing me up.
I know, yeah.
I'm only running like nothing.
A quarter of what she's running.
I do have a couple, like, not secrets, but just kind of like things. I try to tune out as much as possible when I'm running. Like, I just try to run. So, but part of that I think also has kind of been tuning in sometimes to like just my body. When I first used to try to jog, my parents, my mom jogged. My dad would run a 5K every once in a while. So when I try to run, I would always get side cramps. And they had told me, like, the trick is, like, your breathing. You have to, like, control your breathing. And they had basically, like, a three beat breath that they would do. And so I was like, okay. So it's just kind of like these 2 quick breaths in and then a breath out. So I'd kind of try to do that when I was running. I'm like, oh, it kind of helps, like, just controlling your breathing. Kenny was the one that told me if you're, like, monitoring your breathing, like, controlling your breathing, which you should be, it should be an odd number. Because every time you breathe out, it like, whichever foot you're laying on when you breathe out, it like relaxes that side of your body. So if you're always breathing out on the same side of your body, you're like kind of lopsided. Which I don't know, this is what he told me. Maybe
explain
just
this. So how does that work?
So I'll
again?
do, like, I breathe with my footsteps. So I will literally just zone out and just like with my footsteps. And I've gotten to a point now where I count. And it's almost annoying. It's
probably
like
awful, huh?
a subconscious counting. But it just kind of like zones everything out. And then from there, my mind will wander and I'll think about something. But if I ever stop thinking about stuff, I'm just back to counting steps. So like my mind is always actively engaged in something. So I think what it does is it like keeps me mentally doing something other than thinking about, sometimes thinking, period. But with each step, it'll be like a, I guess when I'm counting like my breathing, I'll do 2 breaths in, and then I'll do 3 breaths out, like one big 3 count breath out. So just kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so it just kind of turns into this like monotone, like just kind of something keeping beat, like, and your brain is kind of working. I got to, on the 100 milers, when I'm just trying to keep going, I got to where I'll count up to 100. And I have like a 1, 2, like I'll count all the way up. When it gets to like the 20s and 30s, the 20 is on one foot, the number is on the other, the 30, like, and I actually did it so much that each foot, like each number has a specific foot. So sometimes I'll be thinking I'll be doing whatever, and then I'll just subconsciously realize I'm like in the 70s, and like I don't really know how I got into the 70s. So it's just one of those like weird things. So I think that's when it looks like rhythmic and normal. Instead of trying to think like, can I breathe? Like asking myself questions, I think I just kind of fall into that rhythm. And that's where my mind automatically goes. It just falls into like that rhythm of just feeling your feet land underneath you and just breathing. And so it's kind of like, I don't know, that's kind of, I started doing it like obsessively, subconsciously a year and a half ago now. and I can't stop. Like, I
love it so much.
Part of me thinks it's like a mental problem. Part of me is starting to see like, okay, it's kind of doing something for me.
You're going to ruin him, by the way. He's going to do this now forever. And I'm not going to stop hearing about it for weeks.
My dude, you're going to have to start counting for
and he's going to like own it like he made it up. But it's so funny for people like you're running and they probably think, I don't know what they think you're thinking, but you're fucking going through numbers. And I've heard this. This is a well-known thing. I've never adopted it.
I read somebody, it might have been Sarah Hall, who's like, I think she is the half marathon American world record holder now. It was some big runner that I'd seen on Instagram, and she did something on her story about like ask me a question, and somebody said near the end of this race you were like muttering something under your breath. What do you like say to yourself to encourage yourself or something? She goes, I think I was counting. She said something about her counting, and I was like, I'm not the only one.
Holy cow.
So it's that kind of just like falling into that rhythm. I found I do it like, so when I'm running the hundreds, I'll count all the way up to 100 because I'm just like running an easy pace, nothing. When I do like a faster run, I really focus on that 5 count. So I'll just count up to 5 over and over. And then when I'm sprinting, like I'm taking shorter breaths. And so I'll do 3, but I still try to do the 3. So it's 1, 2, 3, like you're alternating that breath out.
Walk this through with me because I really don't understand it yet. So you're running and and then you.
What's a step? Is it in and out's a step?
Yeah.
Well, it's like with your steps, there's 1, 2 breaths in.
Oh, okay.
And then there's with 3 steps out, and like an out,
so that's
out,
like
but like a 1 long breath.
Those are like the breathing exercises.
So it's like
box like. No, it's
2 and then 3 out.
But it's almost like and then like a long exhale, but it goes for 3.
But it's counts, so it's not like individual breaths. Like it's not.
I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like that's how I mentally. It's like 1, 2.
Damn, that'd be hard initially.
Yeah.
I found.
I'll probably trip over my damn feet.
but when I'm doing sprinting, I'll take 1 quick breath in, 2 quick breaths out. But it's that. Like it still keeps that rhythm, but my feet are moving faster. I'm breathing quicker, but I still found like if I don't think about it, sometimes I'll do just like 1 breath in, 1 breath out, and those
Forget
are almost like well, just
she's turning purple.
1 breath in and 1 breath out, and those are like almost 2 short breaths. So I feel like having that like and that long exhale helps me like breathe.
Ooh, I'm gonna be an animal now.
And that
I've even on OCRs, I'm more involved. Like I don't find myself counting as much, but I found when I'm running fast, I'll be doing that 1 breath in, 2 quick out. And if I start like getting out of breath, if I make myself do 2 in and that 3 out, go back to the 5 count, it helps me like kind of catch my breath and like I don't slow down running, but I like slow down like my internal rhythm a little bit. So.
Golly, these are all the secrets, man. People are gonna pass you up now.
Yeah, you wait. I'm coming for you. In the girl event, in the women event. I'm still amazed. You don't listen to music either. That's all the good runners don't listen to or anything.
The music, like I think maybe because I have that internal rhythm, it kind of throws it off. Or at least when I initially started running, it did. Where I found like I was either running faster or running slower. I found like podcasts help my and also when like listening to music, it like gets me involved in the music and kind of like distracts from the running, which I always say like I try to distract myself from running, but not with like something new. Like music is another like involved thing.
Yeah.
So when I listen to podcasts where it's just people talking or a story or something, I'm able to like my mind wanders without actually like getting involved in something other than running. So
I switched.
found podcasts.
I switched from music to podcast.
Yeah.
When we were running a lot, I would alternate, but podcast, I will forget I'm running. If it's interesting enough, I'll be 2 miles in. I'm like, oh, yeah. I don't remember coming around here. Like
I'll even like have a new podcast come out. I'm like, oh, it's an hour. I'm like, done. Let me go run for an hour to listen to this podcast.
I know. The music I found like if it was a fast music, my heart rate, even if I was doing a slow run, my heart rate would be completely elevated.
Yeah. I think that's kind of where it goes, where like it's something else. Your body is like actually distracted to something else instead of just kind of letting your mind like zone out.
Gosh,
you've got to be so tuned into these hundreds now. I did like something way shorter. I did like 30 miles, and I was a diva. Like I was with another guy that was way out of my league, and I was like, I got probably like 20 something. It was like dark, and we were like I didn't know much longer. I think it ended up being an extra 10 miles when I thought we were actually going to be done. And I ate like too many gels and not enough like actual calories.
Yeah.
And so he was like, you need to eat a bar. And I was like, I ate a bar. And then, shortly after I came back and I was like, oh my gosh, I needed that.
Yeah.
What are those things whenever you get like really shitty, like those times when you're like wanting to quit? What is it normally that gets you back around, like as far as like diet, like you eating or even a mental thing?
Yeah. I take caffeine pills. I only take them. Well, I don't drink any caffeine. So if I take a caffeine pill, I'm not even sure. Maybe it's 100 milligrams. I think some of the ones I have are 100. Some of them are 200. That'll normally kick in and I'm like, woo, let's go. Eating helps. And then also just realizing like you're going to have those low spots and sometimes you just have to stick them out. I was talking earlier today about like when I went from like flat races to like races more elevation. The first one I did was this 50K out in Tennessee, and it's like approximately 50K. They don't actually have a course, or they don't have a you're not allowed to take GPS, and they don't have like a course profile. They don't have the day before the race, you get a cloth map with the course marked out on it. And so you kind of have to like, so it's kind of this, it's like this whole thing around it. But it was the first time I'd ever done elevation. And so everybody's like, the elevation is always kind of up in the air, but people will take the course afterwards and kind of like overlay it on a topographic map or whatever and estimate. So people, it's 30 miles and about typically somewhere from like 10 to 12,000 feet of gain, which is way more, mountains than I ever do. So I was like nervous going into it. And somebody told me, I thought it was Kenny, but now I'm not sure that he gets the credit. I've always kind of credited it to Kenny. I don't know if I read it somewhere, but I read somewhere, just keep moving forward. Like the thing was like relentless forward motion. And so like going up hills, going down hills, like just keep moving forward. If you keep moving forward for the allotted amount of time, you will finish. And so I feel like even when I'm like hitting low spots and that kind of thing, like you can't always fix them. Like sometimes you just feel shitty and that's just the way it's going to be. But like you can always move forward. Moving forward gets you closer to your goal and gets you like farther away from that bad spot. So that's kind of what I found is like, just keep moving forward. I had a situation kind of like yours where it was like a long course and food was off, whatever. I did this 100-miler in Wyoming last summer. And it is by far like the craziest, but like also the coolest experience I've had in an ultra. It was in the Bridger Teton National Forest, which is like just south of the Grand Tetons. And it was initially supposed to be a point to point where you like start at one point, run 100 miles to the next point. But because of this bad weather that was blowing through, they didn't want to take us up on like too many of the peaks that were over 10,000. So they instead decided to take kind of the lower elevation half of the course and do like an out and back. So it had a 46 or 48 hour time cutoff, which it was their first year doing it. So they didn't really like, a lot of it was unknown. But when you have those longer cutoffs, you can kind of count on like, it's going to be a more difficult race. This one had like 30,000 feet of gain throughout the 100 miles, which is a lot.
30,000?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Like Leadville only has like 15 or 18. Leadville was that same weekend, and I saw Leadville is all at elevation, like at a high altitude. But I saw that, and I was like, that's nothing after doing 30,000. So 30,000 is a lot. And a lot of these trails some of the trails were maintained, but a lot of it was not super well maintained. So it's like the course markings were these little, tags with a reflective strip. But a lot of it was just like, is that really where the path is supposed to go? Like, that's just straight down a hill and like just kind of sliding down there. Anyway, so started out on that one. I made it started at noon. And by like 3 the next morning, I'd made it 43 miles and I had a crew for this race. So my friend was there with the car and I was like, 3 a.m, normally if I'm tired, I'm worn out, I'd take a caffeine pill and keep going. But I was kind of like, I just want to sleep. Like now is the time to sleep when it's dark, when I'm tired. So I told her, I was like, I'm just going to sleep for 30 minutes. Slept for 30 minutes, ended up sleeping 30 more. I said, like, she decided she wasn't going to let me sleep anymore. I wasn't anyway. So I slept for that 1 hour, went out to the 50-mile mark, came back in. At about, I guess, so at 50 miles, you turn around, you come back through. It was at the 70-ish mile mark. Right at about the 70, they had an aid station there, and it was supposed to start raining that day. So, and it was supposed to come through around noon, I think. No, maybe it was later than that. I don't know. So, no, it was about noon or 2 or something. So I came through the aid station somewhere around noon or 1, and they were like, make sure you have your waterproof stuff out. It's going to start raining. There's 10 miles to the next aid station, to the 80-mile aid station. So I was like, okay, we're good to go. In that section, that 10-mile section, there had been 2 grizzly bears that had like sat in the trail for several hours the night before and made 2 girls like sit there and wait and turn around. So as I'm heading out, they're like, oh, by the way, there were grizzly bears out there, and like these 2 girls dropped because of them. And I was like, well, thanks. Like, here I go. A lot of people had dropped out at this point because we're, 70 miles in. I was like, all right, like, let's go. Some of the people I'd run with were really big on like grizzly bears, and they would talk and, hey, bear, something, because you're supposed to, if they know you're there, they'll run away. And I was kind of like, I want to see a bear, like all this.
I'll fuck with a bear.
So I started out on this 10-mile, section, and we go up on this ridge line, and it started like thunder and lightning storm. Like this lightning storm came blowing through, and we were kind of in the woods, and it was going to be on this exposed ridge line going up. And I don't know if I caught up to, or this older guy, I was hiking up this big hill with him, and it started, the lightning was like crazy everywhere. And I was like, I don't want to go out on that exposed ridge with like this lightning. So we kind of found this little like cove of trees and sat there for 10, 15 minutes. I fell asleep, like sitting there, and I think it was about 10, 15 minutes. So the rain, it was raining, the lightning. So then he kind of woke me up. He was like, hey, it's letting up some, let's go. So we're going, and he pulled out this really nice jacket, like this shell that he put over his pack and himself. It was probably, it started raining. This is Wyoming. It was probably like in the 50s. So it was like cool, but not like cold. It was cool. Anyway, so he had this nice jacket on, and I noticed when the rain would hit his jacket, it would like roll off. And I found out this race, the difference between waterproof and water resistant. And they had said in like the race rules, like, make sure you have waterproof clothes. I was like, this is my rain jacket. I've worn it through some races. I've stayed warm, My jacket was not rainproof. It was rain resistant. So anyways, we went up this ridge, and then from this ridge, it had started raining so hard now that the rain was running down this trail and turned it into like a creek. And like good trail etiquette, you're supposed to stay on the trail. But it was getting to the point where I was like, I don't want to it was like thick mud. Yeah. So I was like kind of walking on the side some, like trying to stay on the trail. But I was like trying to respect that you're supposed to be on the trail. But it's just turning into like this muddy river. Obviously my feet were wet. Like I didn't really care about it. But I was like, it's hard to step in it now. Anyway, so we made it up to the top. Or we made it up along that ridge line. The next little section, it was this little, I think it was 3 or 4 miles of like this out and back where you kind of drop down into a valley. You do these switchbacks up to the top of, I think it was Gray's Peak, and you have to like get to that point and then turn around and come back down and join up on the trail. So it was kind of this little out and back section. On the way there, they had these little postcards that you have to pick up as like proof you're there or whatever. So me and this older gentleman, got up to there. We dropped down the valley. The clouds were super thick at this point. So like we could still follow the trail, but you could not see the top of the mountain at all. And even walking across this kind of meadow to the base of this little peak is like, you can't see like anything. The clouds were so thick. You couldn't, like, these people came down one switchback above us, and we couldn't see them until they were like on our switchback. And these are like pretty tight switchbacks. Anyway, so we made it up to the top of there. I got a picture. Like at this point, I'm like, it was raining, all the wind. I was getting kind of cold, but I was still moving. So I was like, I'm good. This guy that I was with, he had not done that out and back on the out portion of the course. So he had talked to the race director, and the guy said, basically do it twice to make up for the time you didn't do it. So he came down from there, and then he's like, I got to turn around and go back up. So I set out on the rest of this 10-mile section where the bears are, and it is raining, lightning, like windy and all that. So I set off on it, and a lot of this trail was like on the side of a hill. So as the water was running down it, even walking on the trail was like eroding it, and like you're sliding with like every step. Anyway, so I made it through that section. I basically put my hands in my pockets. I found out like if you put your hands in your pants pockets, they like stay warmer than if you put them in your jacket. I was soaking wet, but I was like, I got this. I'm just going to keep going. It was a really neat, like as I dropped down, there was a couple times I thought I saw a bear. I was sure there was going to be a bear there. I like was holding my pepper spray. I was like, it's right here. Or my bear spray, not just pepper spray. Anyways, so that section, like there were the lightning storms are like right there. I was like walking through this forest, but it was kind of neat because it was, now like mid-afternoon, like it was getting kind of dusk, and the lightning would light everything up, and like it's really cool. So did that section by myself and basically just put my head down and kept going. I was like, just got to make it. So I made it into this 80-mile aid station, and because the storms were so bad, they decided to hold the course. So they're like, we're going to hold it for, I think they said 40 minutes or maybe 60 minutes. I was completely soaked. The last creek crossing right before that 80-mile aid station, it was like waist deep. So I had been like trucking along, but then going through there was soaking again. So I had two crew. I had a crew and then a pacer who was supposed to pace with me. But on my way in there, I was like, I'm soaked like to the bone. If I'm going to finish this, I have to have dry clothes. So I told him when I got in, I was like, I don't even need you to run with me, but I need your dry clothes. Like, can I have your dry clothes, please? So I came to the 80-mile aid station. They held the course for like 40 or 60 minutes. So I was able to like get changed. A bunch of the people that I'd come in with were like, we're not going back out there. And I was like, we're 80 miles in. Like, I came here to do 100 miles, not 80 miles. And I don't always have that attitude. So I was like, I got this. Like, I was not going to let it drop. So my pacer like gave me his more waterproof clothes. He actually like took his like thinner jacket. He still wanted to go pace with me. He took his like thinner jacket. He even like wrapped a trash bag around like his torso as like an extra layer. And as soon as they lifted the course, I was like, let's go. So we headed out, and as we headed out, it started raining. It rained the whole way like to the next aid station. And the trails, straight up, straight down, and you're basically walking up a creek is basically what it is. Anyways, that last aid station was supposed to be at 80, I think it was right at 90. It was supposed to be at like 90. So you got like 10 miles to the finish, and there was 4 miles from the finish. Somewhere in there. So I was like, okay, we set out from that. As after we set out, the next group of people that came in got held there because the storm was so bad. But as we set out from this, we started up this, it's kind of the last big climb, and it is a bunch of switchbacks. And I'd come through it the day before, and it was fun to run down, so I kind of knew what we were in for. As we started up that climb, it started hailing. Oh, it had hailed some earlier in the day, where I was like, this is hail, like, this is kind of crazy. It started hailing real bad, and I was like, come on, like, let's just go. So we started up these switchbacks. The cloud was so thick. We were like, there was a trail to follow because it was switchbacks. But I kept on, I would look up and I could see like one of the little fluorescent marking strips like straight up. And I was like, how are we still going up that much? So we're doing these switchbacks. The lightning was really close. It was really neat. Like when the lightning would hit, it would light up the whole valley like daytime. Like, and now it's, 7, 8, 9 p.m. or whatever. Anyways, rained the entire time going up there. I'd gotten kind of quiet because I was just kind of like you couldn't really hear anything anyways. I normally like talk a lot. And it was when we got to closer to the top, it was so cloudy. Like you would walk up on trees, like some trees along the side of the trail, and you couldn't see them until you were like right there. Like, oh, there's trees. So we finally made it to the top. And as we were getting closer to the top, it turned into like snow. I was like, this is snow. Like it's little white snowflakes. I forget at what point my pacer got quiet. He got quiet eventually. And I said, you good? And he kind of didn't answer. And so I was like, I don't know if he's okay. But he was just kind of, trucking along behind me. We finally made it to the top of that ridge. And it was in the nighttime, it might have been like 11 or 12. I think it was about 11 or 12. And at the top of that ridge this is my moment. Like almost every race I have that moment where I'm like, this is why. Like there's the sunrise, sunset, whatever. But at the top of that ridge, there's a little bit of snow on the ground. We were like above the cloud. We'd made it above the storm clouds. And it was just a little bit of snow on the ground. You could see all the stars. And it just felt like we were up above like everything. It's this really cool feeling. And I literally told him, I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is so cool. Like, partly we made it to the last climb. And there's just neat to have like, there's snow on the ground. Like, we made it above this storm, and like, how cool is this? Like, you just feel on top of the world. Anyway, so I think it was we started heading down the backside, kind of coming off the ridge. There's snow on the ground, and he said something about like his feet are wet and cold. And I was like, well, mine are too, but like, they're not that bad. Coming down off of there, I don't know what kind of, I feel like there were bushes that were really annoying. Either that or the ground, we were sliding so much we were grabbing onto the bushes. I don't know what it was, but it started getting harder and harder to follow the course markings. We were kind of like, just kind of traipsing through these areas where like, there's one up ahead, so we'll just cut across here. So for the next 3 or 4 hours, we were just kind of following from marking to marking. He was getting really cold, so we actually pulled out an emergency blanket and wrapped it around him. And we're at the point where I'm at 96 miles on my watch now. Like, we should be hitting an aid station any minute now. So we kept on traipsing, and we were even getting cold and uncomfortable. I couldn't really warm up anymore because my jacket the jacket I was borrowing was waterproof, but I had a long sleeve shirt underneath, and those sleeves had gotten wet, and it kind of my whole sleeves had gotten wet. So I was I was cold. He was cold. We hit this point where we actually couldn't find the trail, and we were I can't find the trail anywhere. I pulled out, I had this GPS tracking device, and it had died. So I was we're lost here. We're just going to die. But I literally told him, I was we don't have any other option. We have to find something. So we had the course on the phone, on his phone. And we had some kind of, I don't really know what kind of, but we kind of had maps that we were sort of but we realized looking at the course map, because there's no GPS, looking at the course map and looking at the map we had downloaded, we're this creek runs into the finish. And we had kind of been loosely following. So let's drop down to the creek and we'll just follow the creek, hopefully into the finish. And so we dropped down to the creek and started following it. And then we just found a flagging. It was one of those
lucky moments.
All right, we're still on track. Anyways, that race ended up being 111 miles long. So for that whole morning, I was literally we're almost there. It was really neat because I almost never had a low spot. I didn't have a typical low spot where I'm tired. It wasn't until the next, after that night was over where my stomach was around. I was hungry. I was thirsty, but I was I didn't want to stop long enough to eat or drink anything. And I was I just got to finish. And I was it's just a couple more miles. I'm over 100 miles now. Anytime now it's finishing. But it was one of those, it's the closest I've ever come to hallucinating maybe because in these forests, there's a lot of the burned trees that are laid on their side. I don't know if it's even burned, but it's, really black. And I started seeing animals nonstop and they would move. There was one time where I was that's a baby moose, and moose are dangerous. You don't want to walk up with them. And I stopped. I was that's a baby moose. And I was it just moved. And he's don't think so. And I was seeing, and then as it got later, I think it was something, my light was kind of casting shadows. So as I would walk, the shadow would move. But I was I was seeing all kinds of stuff. And I knew it wasn't real, but I was seeing it. And I would tell him and we'd kind of laugh. And then as it got lighter, it turned into more and more of clearly these are just trees, but look, that kind of looks like this. And he was just kind of I don't know, kind of crazy. I definitely got to a point where I was I just want to be done, and walked ahead a little ways and kind of cried this just sucks. And then we finally smelled smoke. We came up on that last aid station. We were we thought it didn't exist. I was where are we even? And that was, 4 miles out from the finish, but I was totally spent. It ended up taking me 45 hours, I think. They extended the time cap way out because of the delays. It took me 45 hours. And in those 45 hours, I was moving most of those and had slept 1 hour. And I've never been more happy to see a finish line and more just spent, done. But it was I feel even in that, there were all those low spots. There were all those things this sucks. But you still find those little moments of this is awesome. When it started snowing, part of me was it's cold. Part of me was it's snowing in August. We're in the middle of Wyoming and it's snowing.
Yeah. And
anyways,
I think it's probably helpful too because you were helping your pacer.
Yes.
Like you were worried about them.
Pacer.
Yes. I ended up like really, well, I felt bad because like he'd given me all his warm clothes and he hadn't really told me that the jacket he was wearing was like thin. I ended up I had a buff around I think I might have had two. I had one around my ears and one that I was like wearing around my neck. I gave him one for his head or maybe his face. I don't know, but I was like, here, like you take this. It was interesting because it's definitely like I felt full on survival. I never felt tired that night. It wasn't until like the sun came up where I was like, okay, just let me be done. But it was I've never had that experience before. Just like I just got to finish. Like there is no option there. You can't drop. You can't stop. Like keep going.
And that one while I was on, we didn't know where to go.
Yeah,
and, like it was so dark, I couldn't see. Like anything. I was like trying to make myself have cat vision or something. I was like, and I didn't bring any clothes. It's at Big Bend. So, and it got real fucking cold.
Yeah.
Like, and so I basically took everything from this guy down to his shoes. Cause my shoes, I was wearing minimalist shoes and there was a bunch of rocks. He was like, do you want my shoes? Like, yeah. And I made fun of him at some point about using, sticks. And at some point I was like, hey, can I have those sticks? Like I used it for a long time. Like I didn't even know how to use them. I was just like, something needs to hold me up. So same shit. It was freezing. We got to the car and like turned it on and like put the heat all the way on and people's tents were blowing away. It was like a weird night.
Yeah. Wow.
Very weird night.
What does your recovery look like after that?
That one was rough because we got in the car and drove 24 hours back to Texas immediately after that. Like literally like we hung out.
She drove.
I tried to drive and
Did you really?
Yeah.
Your legs didn't work.
So
crazy.
My friend whose car it was, she had been like crewing for us and had, driven to different places, but she was obviously the most prepared to drive. The guy that had paced me, he always says like he can't sleep in the car. He's always awake. He can't ever sleep in the car. Well, after running with me all night, he passed out.
Like a light.
So she had made this rule like the person in the passenger seat has to stay awake to help the driver stay awake. Person in the back seat can drive or can sleep. Well, he rolled up in the back seat and was like ready to, I don't know if maybe he didn't start there. I'm pretty sure he started there. Rolled up in the back seat and was like, I gotta sleep, So we're like, fine, he'll sleep. She started driving. I was sitting in the passenger seat. I couldn't stay awake. I was like, I'm sorry, like I physically cannot stay awake. So I was sleeping. She pulled over at some point and was like, hey, I gotta like take a break. I was like, I can probably drive for like an hour or two. I think I lasted maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And she was like, pull over, I'm driving again. He slept for, I think he eventually took like a 2 or 3 hour driving shift, but Alyssa drove us like the majority, I guess it was like 20 hours back to Dallas, which is where he lived. And then me and Alyssa had to get in our own cars and drive the 5 hours back down here. But by then I was, kind of rested up. My feet swelled up. They've never swelled up like that before, but I think from sitting for 20 something hours, my feet swelled up pretty badly. Other than that, it was just kind of, it just took a day or two. Okay. I've found recovery wise, and this doesn't necessarily work for everybody, but I think it works more than people would think. You have to keep moving. Like, I mean, sitting in a car for 20 hours, obviously like an extreme version of that. But I found if I like get out, walk around, prove to my body and to my mind that like everything still works. You can still walk. I've even found like the next day to just go run something. It was just like half a mile or like a broken mile to go run just to kind of like remind your body. And I feel like it kind of like stretches things out, moves things around, just kind of like you can still work. You do still work. I don't pressure myself to get back to any kind of perceived like recovery, anything. My goal is to like keep moving. I always try to get at least like 10,000 steps a day. So I'll still, go walk, do something. I'll even do bleachers because like bleachers will like mix it up. I normally don't work out for a little while. But I found that like moving, like everything hurts, everything's sore, and it's supposed to be sore, but your body is also supposed to keep moving, like, and it will keep moving. So
speaking of the beautiful mountains, big news. Yep. You're leaving us.
Yep. It's been a long time coming. I've lived here for like 4.5 years now. And I never thought I would end up here. I ended up here. I initially loved it. My reasons for being here no longer exist to the level they did before. Especially with me wanting to do better in these mountain races. It's just making less and less sense to be here. So it's been like a year-long transition for me. Kind of started like with everything else like 6 months ago. But yeah, head for the mountains. Especially like this summer, I got into the Grand Slam of ultra running, which is like 4 out of 5 of like the biggest 100-milers within a summer. And two of them are definitely like mountain courses. One of them's like Leadville is at altitude.
What are they called? The Grand Slam, so we know.
It starts with Old Dominion in Virginia. I think the next one is the Vermont 100 in Vermont. You have the option of Western States, or Western States is the other option. I don't have that option, but that's the other optional race. And that one I think is in July. It might be end of June.
Why don't you have that option?
Because that's for like good runners.
That's one that everyone
lottery,
wants to do.
Yeah, it's a lottery to get in. You can win golden tickets to get in, but obviously those are taken by like top runners. They say it takes an average of like 7 years for people to get in on lottery. I had a friend that did it last year. I think it was like his 3rd year putting in, which is like super lucky, or 2nd or 3rd, something like that. But the more every year when you apply, you like build up a ticket. So it just takes a long time to get in. There's some debate on, well, all of the ones that I'm doing are kind of like races that people want to do. So there's some procedure to get into them. And some people say like, oh, it's just like putting a bunch of emphasis on races that like aren't even that important, like the Grand Slam. I heard about the Grand Slam and I was like, that sounds cool. I really
It sounds fun to me.
Yeah.
It sounds fun to probably anybody.
And it's like, so it's the Old Dominion, Vermont, then I'm doing Leadville in August, and then it finishes with Wasatch. And at Wasatch, they have like this big trophy with like an eagle on it, and you like get recognized there. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. Like doing 4 100s within a summer is pretty intense. And yeah, it seemed cool. I wanted to do all 5. I was like, I'm going to do 5 out of 5. But once, Western States is kind of impossible. They also have, I think they call it like the last great race. There's a 6th one you can throw in. Angeles Crest is one, I think it's in California somewhere. And that's kind of like the 6th older, well-recognized one that you can throw in as well. But I went with the 4.
Do you know where you're going to go stay at?
I'm headed to Colorado. Yes, okay. Headed to Colorado. I haven't really decided a whole lot besides that.
And you leave pretty soon, right?
In a couple weeks.
Yeah.
A week and a half.
Did that date change? This is going to come out later, but weren't you leaving Monday?
No, like Friday.
Oh.
Next Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to leave like Wednesday.
So you don't have a place, you're going to drive. This sounds very
I'm
you.
I'm going to drive.
You're going to drive. You don't have a place to stay.
I like sleeping in my car.
Uh-huh.
I do have a brother in Colorado Springs. I have friends in Colorado Springs. I have a bunch of running friends in Boulder, and I saw a bunch of them at a race recently, and they were all like, oh, we've got an extra bedroom. We've got an Airbnb. Like, I'm not too worried about my options. The one thing I'm kind of in limbo about is like a job. It's hard. I'm wanting to go back to nannying. And so like childcare, that's kind of more, I've been in the fitness world and that's fun, but like it's my hobby, and I'm not really, I've liked doing it for work, but like long term, I don't really see myself there. So people do, nannying as like a career, a lifelong career. And there's like some legitimate options, especially out in that area. But a lot of it kind of has to be like in person. So that's kind of like the general goal, or else I'll just kind of float for a little while and see where things land. I'm just ready. I'm ready to get to the mountains. You're
going to be amongst elite athletes, yes. And I think it's going to be really good for you to just be with, fly with the eagles or whatever you want to say. You're going to be submerged in that culture.
Like I have no illusion. Like I don't think I'm going to instantly become any kind of anything, but I think it'll definitely change things.
That's where you go to be an elite athlete, like among multiple sports. Because of course you're at elevation, like you were saying, and that's the best. Isn't that the best to train in?
So I've argued this side because I've lived in humidity for so long. They say it's harder to go from altitude to humidity than it is to go from humidity to altitude, or it's at least like a similar training effect. And it's harder, or some people say it can be harder to adapt to humidity than it is to adapt to altitude. So yes, altitude has like a lot of benefits. Some people think like, oh, you run up at altitude and with less air. Then when you come down to lower altitude, you're supposed to be able to like run faster. But they say those effects only last like a couple days or something. So I'm not like, it's not so much about that. It's more like the outdoors, the mountains, the trails, like, and the altitude obviously can be an advantage, but.
Yeah. Is
there ever, do you have a moment of, I want to come back one day, or it's like,
I don't plan to have that.
Yeah. Well, I'm asking because first time I met you, I thought you were bigger than Brazoria County. Like, why is she here? Why is this person here?
I don't think anybody's ever bigger than anything. I think this has been a very important, I wouldn't say it hasn't been a destination for me, but it's been a very important like step in my process. So, it's not somewhere I want to be long term, but I've tried to, and I think I really have like appreciated it for what it's been. And I don't think I would be in a position to be ready to go to Colorado if I hadn't spent some time here.
Yeah.
I thought the plan was Montana. How'd that change?
That's too far north.
That's
That's cold.
That's Yellowstone though.
Yeah, people die there.
Jeez. Okay. Are you, the most important question, are you going to still rep grit?
Yes.
In likely. Races?
Yep. Possibly.
You don't have to. You can let me wear that. I'll wear it.
Yeah, that probably fits John.
Yeah, I plan to represent them. But I also do have sponsors that are like paying to get me places. So I think it'll definitely be broadening. But grit is definitely like, that's kind of my roots. Like, and I like my jerseys. I was telling Kenny, I was like, I don't know what else I would wear. Like, just makes it really simple.
I haven't seen you in anything besides, except for your shorts.
That's what I've raced in for the entire time. So yeah, we'll see.
I think you wore this last podcast. I bet. I don't know what the shirt looks like, but it was that color. Is that grit? Did you wear the same shirt?
Let's check it out.
There's no way.
Would that be some shit?
Maybe the same shorts.
Nope, these are new shorts.
Those are new.
Oh my gosh!
Is it the same outfit?
You had the same jacket too, but you took it off because it was hot in the old setup.
No, she had a tank top on.
Is that a tank top or t-shirt?
Tank top?
This is a t-shirt.
Okay, well, it's still grit though. I think it's the same color.
Oh, it's grit.
I want to show you what you were wearing for some reason. Oh, here you go. Look at
that. I think it switched us.
Yeah.
Oh, damn it. you believe me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is Kenny crying?
He claims he's gonna cry.
Yeah.
Has he cried around you before? He's emotional. He cries, right? Yeah.
A handful of times.
Yeah. He's gonna. I don't think it's hit him yet.
I think everybody's kind of avoided it. Maybe myself included. Because I don't really want to think about like the effects of it. Maybe.
Yeah. It's an exciting time for you, though.
Exciting. Yeah. No, I'm mostly just excited.
Yeah.
Those moves are hard. Like. For the better, but
yeah, everybody like cries, but I always tell them like I'll still be around. That's kind of my like. It's not like I'm like disappearing.
There's Instagram and Facebook and everything.
Physically going somewhere else.
You'll visit here, right? Sometimes, like
yeah, I'll be back for grit games this summer for a couple weeks. So
you gonna continue doing grit games?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah,
that's good. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's gonna hit you.
Yeah,
I could see you already have a wall, but it's. You're going to be in the car driving there. And
I
have
a lot of walls. No, I have a lot of walls. I'm pretty good with my walls.
Yeah. You'll run out of brick, girl.
Calm down, Trump.
Unlikely.
I'm sure everyone's going to miss you, too. I mean, your classes, you built such a rapport up with everybody. And a lot of people went to Grit just to, hang out with you and get coached by you. So
I don't know about that, but I think I've... Oh, that's what you entered.
I can say it.
Yeah, I'll say it for free for 2 days.
Yeah, Mike paid for it. And
didn't even make the third day.
Mike just paid rent there.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
I think it's been interesting because it really, like I am a different person than I was when I came into this. And I don't know if that's really hit me so much or if anybody else realizes that maybe. Like I grew up very shy and very quiet, and I've always been like sort of a dominant personality, like, you know, fairly outgoing, but I think being at Grit and being in the position I've been has built I've learned a lot, so I feel like way more knowledgeable than I've ever been. And then just the position I've been in has made me have to step up to this plate that I did not come into Grit with. So that's what something like, I still feel like I'm who I was, but I kind of have to realize like, no, I guess like I have grown into this person that I am now. And that's what most of these other people see me as. So that's good.
I think it was important. I think it was important you stopped off here. Oh, I think you learned a lot of stuff.
For sure. Good old Brazoria County.
You're a lot different from even our last podcast. Like, you're grown up a lot. And
thankfully.
I think Kenny helped a lot too, whether you want to admit it or not.
Kenny definitely has.
Kenny's a good person to be around.
Yeah.
I think he has a good, healthy mind, and y'all push each other to be better.
Yeah.
Y'all argue to make each other better, really.
Yeah. No, he's just somebody that I don't know that I've ever met anybody that is, I talk about like being mentally aware, mentally cautious, or conscious. I don't know that I've ever met, I haven't been close, I guess, to anybody else that is that like forward progress focused and like constantly on a mission to like better, not just himself, but also like everybody around him. And that's probably one of the biggest things that's changed is that mindset, like being around that mindset. Again, like the 5 people you're around, like I've picked up on that to a point where, I don't think I'll ever be on Kenny's level, but I've picked up that mindset of like always forward progress, bettering yourself, and always bringing the people around you with you kind of thing. So yeah, it's cool.
I know like you're a humble person. You're very, you're a people person. You're very humble, but you have something about you. Like first time we talked to you, I was like, man, she's awesome. She's going to make it. Whatever she does, I don't know what it is, but you have the it factor, and you're just naturally good,
Yeah.
So you're going to do awesome. I'm really excited to see what you do up there. You're going to kick some ass. I'm be like, I know, Kris.
We'll be cheering for you.
I'm excited because I don't know. I read, it was a Malcolm Gladwell book, and I read several of his, I don't know if he's an author, kind of, I guess, modern author. He writes I think he's written like 4 books, and all of them are kind of like a different take on, again, like mindset perspectives, a different take on them. So he kind of like, he goes into the whole like hockey in Canada and basically the whole development program for it, and how they have, I think it's something like, a large percentage of the people in the elite hockey field their birthdays are all within like a certain 6 months, and how because they're bigger at a very, like in middle school, the teams they get selected on, all this kind of thing. So they are creating these people, and they're also not creating a whole 50% of like that other percentage. Anyway, so he kind of digs into things like that. Like, why are things the way they are? And like, what if it's not just because these people were super talented, but because of things they couldn't help, they became super talented. And I think it was him that said something about like successful people, like, there's something that there is no such thing as the self-made man. Like everyone says they were self-made. Absolutely. Like people work hard, people make decisions, people take advantage of opportunities. So there is a level, like, not to discount people that work hard to get to where they are. But if you like look back over your life and the opportunities you've had and the changes you've made, other people have always been involved in them. And I like heard that concept, like I read that a while ago, and I've been very like, I feel like I live a pretty charmed life. Like I've had some great opportunities. I've had some like things kind of handed to me that not everybody gets. And hearing that perspective has, I think, helped me kind of keep things in perspective of like, yes, like I'm doing big things and I want to do big things and I want to continue to be things and I want to make something of myself. But like, I am under no presumption that like I can do that on my own. Like, I always want to, and I try to, and I want to be like grateful for the opportunities that are put in my path. Like, and it's something like, again, like some people aren't in a position to take advantage of opportunities or aren't in a position to like, you know, make decisions. But that's something I guess I've seen over my life. Like where I've ended up, where I'm at, like never could have guessed it from like 10 years ago. And so like the opportunities that have been given to me by other people, like I've created some of them, but a lot of them have been given to me. And so I don't know, I feel like that just kind of keeps it in perspective of like, I'm working hard. Like I'm never going to stop working hard, but like really grateful for the opportunities and the people that I've been like, that I've, you know, been able to work with and all that. So
I envy your lifestyle because you're the definition of go with the flow. Yeah. Like I've always, probably Jon too, we just like really want to control our life and like plan for the future and
I don't see you that way at all.
Well, look at my bank account. But anyways, but you ride the wave, and sometimes I do it a little bit, but I mean, you're like if something comes up, you'll go do it. Like, and you see how life actually works. People will, you know, take you in or take you out for food or like just like you see how like people care about you, you know, and you do things that people would probably never do. Like you'll take opportunities, and then that's kind of where you're going. And now you're going up to Colorado. It's like just all the life took you there, right? And we try to really control it. We're going to be here probably for the rest of our damn lives, but like you let life take you.
And that's like, I think there's different like ways to view that, because I sometimes feel like I'm very behind. Like maybe I should have like a degree and a good job and buy a house and these kind of things. Like to me, that's almost what I view success as. But I have my friend Alyssa is the one that has an engineering degree and works at Dow and like has her life very planned out. And she said the same thing as you, like you're kind of living the life. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of put it in perspective. One other thing that I've kept like kind of changed things and I've kept in mind when I moved out east to work with these horses, it was a very like low, it was basically a non-paying job. Like I got housing and like a tiny monthly like stipend, but I was basically like living off his savings. I got in a car wreck and ended up like having to get a new car. Like I basically not like actually hit rock bottom, but I did like hit a point where I was like, okay, I'm like just at the base level here. Like I don't really have a lot going for me. And I saw on a tea bag is this little quote that said, I make the most of all that comes and the least of all that goes. And that like changed things where I was like, you know what? Like no matter how much you try to control life, and I am kind of a controlling person. Like I like to have things controlled. And I like to like be on the upper hand, you know? Even if you try to control things, like you're not actually in control of anything and things happen to you all the time. And I read that and I was like, that's really good. Like make the most of it when it comes and make the least of it when it goes. When it goes, like that's, I don't know, like just kind of, I guess, appreciating the positive and dealing with the negative.
That's so awesome. And you're not afraid to take risks either, right? Like do you think about stuff before you do them, or you just kind of jump and do them?
I think to some degree. Yeah. I mean, even this move, like I started thinking about it a year ago where I realized like, I don't want to be here. And almost to the point where like I'm in a position now where I'm ready to move to the next thing. But it took, it wasn't until like September that I kind of like started talking to Kenny and Grit about like, I'm ready to phase out. So this has been like kind of a long time coming. And I've just kind of, I'm a, like when you speak things, when you like write things down, like words, like all that like has power. So it's almost one of those things of like putting things out there and then just kind of seeing it where it goes. Like I'm not I guess I kind of take risks, but I feel like they're kind of calculated sometimes.
It's good to know that you're not in control. Yeah. And the more you let go the more comes, and life becomes a little easier. I think it's like when you try to hold on, it's like it's still going to go that way. It's just going to be like harder. You know what I mean? It's like
because you're not in control of really anything. Like you can, and that's the whole like you can control your reaction to things. You can control how you view things, but that's kind of it. Like you, and other than that, everything is kind of up in the air anyways. So like,
look at you.
That's so awesome.
Well, we are almost on our longest podcast ever. Just joking.
We should keep going just to make it long.
To make it worth it. No, but
I like your mindset. Like I want to adopt that. Like I really want to. I want to try, and I'm going to go back and listen to this very end of the podcast just so I can reaffirm to myself, because I try to control my everything about what happens. So, the family and the kids, I try to control everything. And me and Mike, just a couple of weeks ago, we were having like a heart to heart about what do we really want to do in life?
Yeah.
And every person that we have on the podcast, I consider a really successful person, and I look up to them, and they take a bunch of risk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm afraid to take risks. And I think a lot of people are, not just me, but I think having your mindset of, going with the flow, not trying to control everything, and being able to take a calculated risk.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Being able to control. I mean, that is one thing, like I say, like I am a controlling person. Like my nature is like, I'm very good with finances. Like I've always stacked savings. Like, so I'm not just like a totally like, so that's where I'm like, those kind of things, like controlling the things.
Control what you can. Yeah.
And that's something that, again, I mean, everybody's in different places, but like there are always things you can control. Even like I feel like with finances, like you can control what you spend money on. Like, oh, kids are expensive. Yes, they're expensive, but like so is going to get your nails done every week or getting your hair. Like all these things that a lot of people like don't even think about spending money on. But I have been very conscious of like I choose not to spend money on like unnecessary things because I want to be able to spend it on racing and running.
Yeah. You're like don't need much. You're like an electric car or something. You just charge up. You don't need to pay for. I mean, you don't really.
Yeah.
You don't really eat. Go out to eat. You don't do these expenses that cause people to get a job. Like if you don't need them, then like you're cool. Yeah.
A lot of a lot of the reason people get those things is because that's what's supposed to happen. Like in a career, like you're supposed to get a nice car and start with payments. Like I've always bought like cheap cars cash, and like again, I mean, I have a brother that's a mechanic, so that helps. But like I've always paid cash, so I don't have a car payment. I don't have like I even like dropped my phone bill or my phone to like a very limited amount of data for a while. So I was like paying less on my phone bill because I was like, I don't need constant browsing available all the time. Like I can use Wi-Fi and I can like make calls and receive texts, and that's it. So like I feel like I've kind of narrowed it down to like these are actually what's like necessary.
Do me a favor. Do not go fucking to school.
Don't do it.
Don't go to a corporation unless it's like one of these ones that, shoe brand or something that you really enjoy. But
and take us with you. When
everybody has the path, and this is like the most well-known path, this whole corporation shit. But you see people on YouTube or TikTok have, millions of dollars and they didn't do nothing. So, I mean, they did something else. So there's more than one ways. And then the end isn't the end for everybody. Like the goal is you could be happy in the mountains, but some people are going to be happy with a $1 billion home. Like, I don't think that's your dream. So like what you want is, I mean, you're already there, right?
Yeah. If I've made it this far, then
maybe there is, and maybe I'm doing a broad stroke here, but I don't think there's anybody that's truly happy working in a corporation. I don't think or I don't think so. I don't think any.
But it's that contrast, that yin yang. Alyssa will want to be you, and you want to be Alyssa. But if you can find it in between, you'll regret that you're not saving money, or you regret that you haven't lived life. It's like that's the yin and yang, that you have to find something. So if you can find something that you make just enough to make you happy,
that's what that's
you're not going to take all this money with you, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I've always done. It's like, and I mean, I would I would like to be a homeowner. I mean, I think real estate is a good investment. So it's things like that where like, but I have no like timeline or expectation for that. Like something I want to work toward eventually, but.
You're way young. You shouldn't even be worried about that, especially with the big dreams you have.
A little old.
Now you're old.
But I've also thought about like, I travel so much, like I wouldn't even spend time in a home. So I'm just not in that.
And you don't want to pay for something you're not, staying at. And I don't like, we get all these habits to where we have to get a job and have to make more because we want that truck. We want the house. We want the, special food or, we want all these things and we make ourselves have to work so much because we've gotten addicted to all these different things.
And that stuff doesn't really make you happy in the end.
It doesn't. You get a lot of stuff and then it's like, I've purged before and minimalist. I've sold stuff and it just feels so good. It feels
amazing.
When you start selling stuff and like, especially how you are right now, you're like, whatever you own is going to be in that car. I bet you and I almost did that with the van, right? Like whatever I owned was going to be in the van.
Yeah.
And it's not that big. It's bigger than your car, but it's not that big. And I was like, I felt so good to not have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great. Something happens. I think that whole concept of like your materials start to own you. You don't own it.
Yeah. Agreed.
Very true.
Well,
yeah.
How can people find you and all that good stuff on social media?
How can they keep up with you nowadays?
Yeah.
You can find me on Instagram. I'm trying to get better at posting and sharing. Instagram. I'll be on there sharing pictures.
The whole mindset thing, to go back to Jon, I would highly recommend we can send you something. They make very minimalist thing that you can hook up to your phone and you could do like this, little series or whatever on YouTube or just on your Instagram. Just put the phone in front of your face. But I'm inspired by some of the things you said, and I think it's important. I think people really gravitate to that. So if you have time on the road or whatever, like sharing your stories and stuff, you got some. Yeah, you motivated me today. So
start documenting and like on like a road trip, like just start like moving to Colorado, and then you become a YouTube star, and then me and Mike can edit your videos. Yeah. You give us a job that we love.
I'll get a producer.
Give us some free shoes because we have the same size foot.
Well, you're awesome, Kris.
Yeah,
and you're
going
to do amazing things. I can't wait to see it.
Excited.
Love you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.